So now we're actually going to make the dough for the bread. We're almost there, sort of, maybe. In the last lesson 4, I told you to make sure your starter floats and has doubled in size. Actually, that's not when you need to do it, although it doesn't hurt. It's actually now that it's really important. So if you'll remember, we also had the leaven. We had created the leaven, and it was about right here on the jar. And you can see this is just 6 hours later maybe, and it has burst out. It's alive, and it's more than doubled. So now we just want to make sure it still floats. Or it does float, I should say. So just take a big dollop and float it in some water. And you can see it floats, and what you can't probably see is that nothing touches the bottom. It's just floating on top. So you're ready to make the dough now. Autolyse is the process of mixing the bread, the flour and the water together in the starter, and then once it's all mixed, letting it rest. And we're going to do that next. So I'm going to take that glob back out when I need it. Okay, so now we're making the dough, and you're going to use a glass bowl. Don't use metal. It can kind of be whatever you want, I guess, just not metal. So it can be plastic. I don't use plastic. I don't know why. Okay, so here's the bowl. So here's what we're going to put in this bowl for the dough. 125 grams of, actually that should say leaven, of this leaven we have. And 335 grams of water, 450 grams of flour, for a total of 910 grams. And as you get doing this, you'll figure out that this is kind of an average size loaf. People will make huge batches and cut them into 2, 3, or 4 loaves if they want a bunch of bread. And also we're going to need 11 grams of salt. This, for us, makes a reasonable size loaf that we can eat mostly before it goes bad or moldy. Okay, so we're going to put in the 125 grams of starter. And if I need it, I'll take the dollop that I floated, but I don't think I will. So that's 131. Close enough, 128. And then I have this water with the dollop in it. I'll use that water. Now we're going to add in 335 grams of water. What did I say, 35? Okay, zero that out. And so before I add in the flour, what I want to do is add in the salt, which I forgot. And the salt is 11 grams. And I put that in the water right now because you want it to kind of, whatever the word is, melt. What's the word for melting solids? Jason? Oh, never mind.
Sorry, what?
Nothing, never mind.
You ask Siri.
Yeah. Okay, and then you stir this around. You want to break up the starter, or the leaven you put in there, and get the salt to break up. Or whatever the word is. What does salt do? It melts? I don't know. I don't spend a whole lot of time doing this, but I just get the big clobs out. Okay. Then, zero it out again. Now we're going to add in 450 grams of flour. Which is what? I hope I have enough here. Thanks. Maybe not. Oh, there we go. Got it. Okay, there we go, 450. All right, so now I've got all my proportions right, and I'll take it off the scale, and now you stir it. You can stir it, I just kind of start in the middle and stir it up until it kind of blends. people like to use their hands on this. They really like to feel how the dough feels. I'm not that much of an expert. So I just go like this, but again, like you did before, you want to make sure there's no dry stuff left. Sometimes if I have to, I will stick my hands in there to make sure all the dry stuff gets incorporated. Okay, it looks like it's all incorporated. You can see it's really chunky, not smooth. All you really care about is that it's all together and it's not dry in any spots. So this now rests, and you put it aside covered. Hold on a second. This, again, so this process I've learned just by reading thousands of sourdough recipes and figuring out what works best for our altitude is a big deal, I guess. So now I put this aside to rest for, I usually do 30 to 40 minutes. Hey Siri, set a timer for 30 minutes. And
30 minutes, starting now.
I usually put it under lights so it's a warm spot, so it gets a little warmth. So it rises. An important part of sourdough bread, which you will find out about as you start making things, is the hydration level of the bread dough. Hydration is a big deal, and if you change it, the hydration level of the dough at all, it changes the outcome of the bread. So in this recipe that I used here, the hydration level is 74%, and you get that from taking the amount of flour, 450, and you multiply it by 0.74, and that gives you the amount of water, 335. So it's basically just the hydration of the dough. So in this case, it's 74%. So that said, I typically go closer to 80%. I use more water. And the reason for that is I found it's better for my altitude. The problem with higher hydration doughs is that they're hard to handle, hard to manipulate. So I think for a lower altitude, more people tend to go around the 70 to 75%, so I think that might be better for Portland. But like I said, I'm using about 80% at my altitude. We'll see what happens with this bread, but I did use 74% today. So you can play around with hydration. Again, this is going to give you one loaf. You can up your hydration levels without changing the flour, so just multiply it by 80% if you don't like the outcome of this one. It takes time. You have to kind of find what works for you. Again, I've gone through this a lot of times trying to figure out how much water to add and all that stuff. Oops. Then, so I'm going to turn off in a second here, but one other item that you may want to get if you're going to do this is whatever this is. It says high cooking utensils. Again, I got it on Amazon, but you use it to scoop dough when when dough is sticky. It's hard to get off the counter. So that's what I use it for, because I use a higher hydration. You can try it without without this tool first. But it's handy for a lot of things, actually, if you don't already have one. If you don't have one, no big deal, use your hands, but they might get messy. And if you don't like sticky fingers, it might be a problem. Okay, well, let this rest for 30 minutes, and I'll be back at the end of 30 minutes to tell you what to do next. Okay, 30 minutes has passed on the dough, and we're going to address that in a second, but I wanted to tell you that this is the jar of discard, and from the last step you had leftover leaven, you can just add that to your discard jar. And my jar is actually, I don't have any room left because it kind of grew since I stirred it and stuff, but it's overflowing, so I'm gonna have to get rid of it or cook a bunch of stuff. But you can add that leaven to your discard jar. It's kind of getting ridiculous. Okay, so back to the dough. You can see it pretty much looks the same as it did about a half an hour ago. What we're going to do now is just, it's called stretching and folding, and you kind of do it based on north, south, west, east. I use a slightly damp hand so the dough doesn't stick to my hand. So I'm getting my hand wet. Okay, so you're just going to start at 12 o'clock or the north direction, and you're going to pull it out. Now see, when I pull it, it's lumpy. This is all normal, and it might break. And that's okay. So turn it 90 degrees and pull again, and just flop it over the top to the opposite side. Turn it 90 degrees. It's so sticky, my hands already. See, it's kind of breaking and stuff. That's all fine. Turn it 90 degrees, pull and stretch and pull, flop it over, one more, I do 5 times usually, but pull it out and set it over the top. Oh, sorry, I hope you could see that. I can show you again, one more. Pull it out and just flop it over the top, and you see it just sits there. It's not very active right now. So what you're doing, I guess, with this step is, I don't know what you're doing. It's something about the gluten's getting eaten up, I think, is what it is. I don't know. Okay, so cover it back up. Now you're going to let it rest like this for 20 minutes. And every 20 minutes, we're going to stretch and fold it in the 4 or 5 directions. And that will be for a total of 5 stretch and folds. So that was number 1 right there. So I'm going to set a timer for 20 minutes. Hey Siri, set a timer for 20 minutes.
20 minutes, counting down.
And come back in 20 minutes and do the exact same thing again, and I will show you that. So I'll be back. Okay, round 2, 20 minutes has passed. It's starting to look a little smoother, I guess you would say. Okay, so we're going to go around again. Pull. And see, look how elasticy it's gotten already. And flop over 4 times. Pull. Look at that. You can't. It's pulling way out. Flop over. Pull. Flop over. And my camera's going to fall off the edge here. Pull. Look how tight it's getting. Tight and stretchy at the same time. One more because I missed a little bit. Okay. So, we're going to let that set 20 minutes. That was number 2. We got 3 more to do. Hey Siri, set a timer for 20 minutes. And cover it.
20 minutes, starting now.
I switched to wax paper because I think heat gets through it better. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, 20 minutes later, this will be round 3. My hand is damp. Stretch and pull. Look at, just so it gets really hard to pull. Whatever's action is happening is doing its job. Look at it, I can lift it up and it doesn't break. Isn't that crazy? Okay, 4th one. Oh God. And it should be doing, this is what it's supposed to be doing. It shouldn't break. Okay, that was number 3, 2 more to go. Okay, round 4. And it's really getting smooth now too. You can you see how smooth it is? Okay, it really shapes up toward the end here. We have one more round after this in 20 minutes. Hey Hey Siri, set a timer for 20 minutes. Okay, this is the 5th time of stretch and fold with 20 minutes in between each one. So this is looking right. It's, hopefully you can see, it's smoother. It's like a struggle to pull it out. It's tightened up or whatever it is it's doing. And so now we're gonna leave it, trying to get it in a ball. See, it's all tight up. Look at the air bubbles, that's awesome. Now we're gonna leave it to sit for 3 to 5 hours. I have found that when I'm doing the higher hydration, I can leave it for like, I think it's like 3.5 hours. And what we're looking for is for it to double in size. So you can see it doesn't even cover the whole bottom. It'll spread out and it'll get up to about here, but I'll check it after 3 hours and see where it is. And then we'll be ready to get it ready to cook. Bake? Yeah, bake. So I'll be back in 3 or 3.5 hours.